stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you don't mind remaining standing for just one more second, I'd like to ask you to take a moment of silence in memory of Mitchell Wright and let his family and friends know that our thoughts are with them in their time of grief. Thank you. Ms. Akromite, roll call, please.
Mr. Storm?
Present.
Mr. Conley?
Here.
Mr. Trombley?
Here.
Mrs. Marks?
Here.
Dr. Krebs?
Here.
Ms. Reed?
Here. That'll take us to the approval of the agenda for this evening. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Support. Moved by Dr. Krebs and supported by Ms. Marks. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes 6-0. Dr. Outlaw, that takes us to the Shining Stars and the other superintendent report.
All right, I'm very excited. We have 3 things we're going to be doing during the superintendent report tonight. I'm extremely excited. We do we honor at the end of each season, we honor some of our many successful athletic teams. I'm going to bring forward our athletic director, Mr. Thompson, to honor some of our spring teams that have done exceptionally well. So, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Dr. Outlaw. We'll jump right into it. Spring followed suit of winter and fall. Another good season for the Dogs. So I'd like our track and field coaches, Coach Etter and Coach Bell, to come up. And why don't we start with the boys? Coach Bell, if you want to have your team that's able to be with us tonight, come on up and join us. But we've had regional championships in track and field throughout the years. What makes tonight a little bit special is that we've never had both the boys and the girls win a regional championship in the same season. So that was really cool, but I'm gonna let Coach Bell tell you a little bit about their season and speak about our student athletes.
Awesome. Thanks for having us here. I'm going to go through each of the events that we had different athletes qualify in this year, starting with our 4x800, Ian Cox, Luke Campbell, Josh Hamilton, and Bodie Cooper, if you guys want to step forward. Ian unfortunately couldn't be with us. He was celebrating his little brother, but these 4 gentlemen actually broke our school record today, at States, and they were 7th. And they finished 7th overall, which is all-state, and that's huge. It's top 8, and especially coming back from last season, it was great to be able to have them have that finish to their season. Great job, guys. Next, in the 1600, and there's a couple of athletes you'll see are repeat, which kind of just shows how talented some of these athletes are. Tyler Langley. He got 10th overall at States and also ran a PR. Thanks, Tyler. Next is the 3200, and even before calling these athletes up, I will say they were a big reason that we were able to actually not only be regional champions, but also repeat regional champions. So Tyler Langley, Luke Campbell, and Tyler Brack. Tyler Langley actually PR'd again, both in his 16 and his 3200. He finished 12th. Luke Campbell finished with a PR and finished 14th, and Tyler Brock finished 23rd. Next was our 4x200, which consisted of Wyatt Nabowsny, Braden Platt, Sam Merriweather, and Lawrence Wells. Even though this wasn't part of state, this group actually also broke the 4x100 school record, which was a 30-year-old school record. So awesome there. They finished 10th overall at states, and they ran their season best. And then lastly was our 4x400, which consisted of Owen Buckley, Colin Robertson, Bodie Cooper, and Ian Cox. At states, they were able to run their season best, actually put them 3rd overall in all of our times as a school for the 4x400, and they were able to finish 8th, which, as I mentioned, does make them all state. Great job.
Through here. Yeah. Oh. Congratulations, guys. Congratulations. My hand those three and give those to the coach. All right, thank you, buddy. We're gonna do a picture of again. Hey, I'm gonna have all the athletes back up here at the end. Yeah, okay, good. Yep, thanks.
And just a quick housekeeping note for our student athletes that are here. Kind of a new tradition we started at Shining Stars. We're going to do a group picture after we get through the athletic Shining Stars. So please stick tight for that. We'll bring our girls track and field team up. They're so fast, they're already here. Regional champions as well. Coach, if you could please do the honors and tell us a little bit about our young student athletes and their season.
Thank you also for having us here. Like you said, regional champs is the first time since 2008 that we have made that accomplishment. We have about 2 girls that weren't able to make it today. But we'll start with the 4x8, which was Gabrielle Belitho, Elba Sett, Nikki Carruthers, Kerrigan Eberly, and Juliette Lewis. You girls can step forward. They also finished 7th, which was all-state, and also broke the school record. And then next we have Gabrielle Belitho. She ran the 800 meter, an individual event, and she finished 14th overall at the state meet and PR. It ran her best time ever. Nikki Carruthers ran the 3,200 meter, which is the 2 mile. She finished 16th overall and matched her PR. Next, we have Kerrigan Eberly. She ran the 1,600 meter, which is the mile. She finished 9th overall, so she just missed the school record or the all-state. But when the race first started, it all got kind of clustered and crowded at the beginning, and she fell, but she got up and broke the school record. And then Juliette Lewis also ran the open 800 meter, and she finished 28th overall at the state meet. And then we have the 4x4, which is Gabrielle Belitho, Juliette Lewis, Lena White, and Addison Payne. Addison Payne couldn't be here today. They finished 14th overall at the state meet. These ladies, 4x4. And then lastly, Addison Payne, like I said, couldn't be here. She ran the 400. She finished 20th overall.
Thank you. Great season. All right.
Our boys lacrosse team were regional champions as well. Coach Carl had to have a bit of emergency oral surgery earlier today, so he's kind of recovering at home. But we have Coach Masick with us, so I'm going to have Coach come up, and any of our boys lacrosse student athletes that are with us, please come up as well. Coach will tell you a little bit about our boys' season and how they wrapped up, but really a good showing. So,
Thank you, John. I'm not much of a mic guy. Can you guys all hear me back there? Okay. I'll reiterate. My name is Spencer Masick. I'm the assistant coach, volunteer, helper, self-appointed CEO, chief energy officer. To me, athletics is about the togetherness, the camaraderie, the respect. It's about the lessons learned, and that leads to the accolades that are received. And we have a couple guys here supporting the program. We were regional champions for the second year in a row. I think to me, the most impressive individual accolades that our team received was there were 22 players in the state of Michigan that received All-American Academic. 4 of those 22 came from our program. So to me, that's the most impressive thing. So it's very cool to be back and to see the program where it is. So congratulations to the guys, and congratulations to all the athletes that are here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
just a couple other spring sports notes here. Baseball had a really great year. Season ended Saturday. Wish we were still playing. I know the boys do too, but won 26 ball games versus 11 losses in the sport of baseball is a really good high school sports season. Our boys golf team were KLA champions. Rugby had a winning season as well. Softball showed remarkable improvement. Girls soccer had a winning season, and girls tennis was 13-4 overall. But as Coach Masick mentioned, really, one of the things that I personally take a lot of pride in is our student athletes' performance in the classroom. And 83.5% of our student athletes that participated this spring in all the sports across the board had a 3.0 GPA or better. So they're not only getting it done on the fields of play, but they're getting it done in the classroom too. And they continue to amaze on both ends. I will also say to our community and our Board of Education and our faculty and staff, Brighton Athletics is about everybody. You don't have to be an athlete to be part of Brighton Athletics. And the sport that this town and this community give Bulldog Athletics is just amazing. So on behalf of our student athletes and our coaches, we're very grateful and we're thankful for all of that support. So our last program that we want to bring up, they've been here a couple times before, not just for winning regional championships, but state championships. If Coach Peters could bring our girls lacrosse program up so they can be recognized for a three-peat for being the Division I girls lacrosse state champions. Come on up, ladies.
Yeah, nice job, guys. So this is our, I'll give them a second. Can you guys hear me?
I am more of a mic person, unlike Spencer. I can't yell that well. So this is our third state championship in a row, which is, I don't know if you girls knew this, but the only team in Livingston County history besides, I think, one other team, Pinckney Cross Country. So congratulations, girls. That's a huge deal. So I would like to recognize some of our team. First, our entire team got academic all-state as a whole unit with a GPA of 3.4, which is incredible. So nice job for that. We had several girls who received academic all-state. Keelan, could you step forward? Gigi, Audrey, Cami, and Abby Watkins, and Maya Nemechek. If any of you, if you're here. Nice job, girls. Several of these girls have GPAs that I couldn't have ever touched. I was very impressed. And then we had several girls that also received all-state recognition. Our first team all-state recognition was Gabby Buckenberger and Cece Mainhart. Our second team players were Georgia Gill, Maya Nemechek, Keelan Eamon, and Ella Toth. Nice job, girls. Third team was Sophia Hetty, and our honorable mention was Abby Kissel. On Friday, we kept Rockford, I think, to the lowest scoring game Rockford has probably ever had. It was a 7-4 game by Brighton. We were in the lead for all of the game, and as a coach, it was, I played at Brighton in 2011 when we won states, and the performance you guys put out on Friday was the best performance that I have ever seen from Brighton girls lacrosse, and that just speaks to not just you guys as individual players, but you guys as a unit. And this group was an incredibly special group to coach this year, and you guys should be beyond proud of yourselves. Yeah, it was incredible. So nice job, girls. That's all I got. That's it.
There you go. Great job.
Thank you.
Congratulations. 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 Good job. Congratulations.
Great job.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Great job.
Great job. Nice job.
Great job.
Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Nice job. Thank you. Great job. Nice job. Thank you. Thank you.
Great job. Great job. Great job. Great job.
Great job.
Congratulations. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. John?
So if we can have all of our spring sports student athletes come on back up, we're going to do a quick group pick.
Now one just me.
While we're doing the transition, if the robotics team would like to come up and get set up while they're doing the transition, come on up. Okay, robotics team, if you'd like to come forward while we're getting set up. They're coming forward with the robotic stuff. Okay. So thank you so much for that. Congratulations to all of our spring athletes. I'm very excited to bring forward another extremely successful team here at Brighton High School. It's the Brighton High School robotics team, the Techno Dogs. And I'm going to introduce their coach to tell us a little bit about the season. Take it away, coaches.
Hi, my name is Nick Sikma. I'm the head coach of the Brighton Techno Dogs. In FIRST Robotics, we build robots in 6 weeks. This robot was completely designed, built, and programmed in 6 weeks, and then we compete during a 6-week period in 2 district championships, and then if we qualify for the state championship through the districts, which this year we did. We came in second at our first district event. What did we come in our 11th and our second? And in the state, we came into states ranking 30th in the state of over 510 teams. We competed at the state championship. And then we qualified for the world championship, and we finished in the top 10% throughout the world in FIRST Robotics. I have a few students here to represent this evening, but I'll just go through the list of students that we had this year, starting with our seniors. We had Boris Adams. He was in robotics for 4 years. He was our safety captain, so he received a safety captain award. Beckett Luce was also a 4-year veteran of the team. He was instrumental in engineering the robot this year, so he got the engineering award. He also got a Kettering Robotics Scholarship, so he'll be going to Kettering University, and he also received a Pratt & Miller internship this summer. John McAllister was also instrumental in engineering and got the engineering award from our team. Chelsea Weber was our business team captain, and she got a leadership award for that. Leah Wisbiski also helped out a lot with the business team and building a robot, and she received a teamwork award for the team. And going on to our juniors, Kayla Archie is here this evening. She was also instrumental in designing and building parts of the robot. She was also instrumental in her leadership abilities, so she received a leadership award. And she was also our most valuable player. The team gave her the MVP award for all that she's done with the team. She also led our scouting and strategy team at all our competitions. Will Blank, who's also here this evening, it's his 3rd year on the team. He helped out with a lot of the wiring and different building of different parts of the robot, and received the teamwork award from the team. Hunter Chenard, who's also here this evening. He was one of our drive team members, actually operating the robot on the field. He was also instrumental in engineering, got the engineering award, and was a Dean's List semifinalist, as well as Kayla Archie. Sorry, missed that one on yours. Megan Gellerman, who's also here this evening. She heads up a lot of our marketing and works on the business team, and as well as helps lead the students. And she received the leadership award. Going on, we only had one sophomore on the team this year. He was a 2nd-year student, Tom Larson. He got the teamwork award. And then we also have one more junior, this is his 1st year on the team as a junior, JJ. He was instrumental in helping the team perform and also got the teamwork award. Grant was a 2nd year on the team. He was also a junior and received the Innovation Award. He was instrumental in generating our autonomous program, because the robot at the beginning of each match has to run through programming. So for the first 15 seconds, it runs an autonomous program, which means the robot's driving itself. And this year we were able to score 5 rings during that 15-second period, which was probably, I would say, only 2 or 3% of the teams could do that. Then we had a number of freshmen on the team. Lowen Bott also helped with the autonomous programming, and it was his second year on the team. He actually was on the team as an 8th grader. Luke Carreras was his first year. He got an innovation award, and he redesigned our battery cart to help manage our battery systems. That's critical when you're competing in robotics. Maxwell Catignani had a participation award. Connor Chenard also participated as a 8th grader. Sorry. He was our Rookie of the Year, also our human player. During the competition, there's usually a human player aspect of the game. And Connor had to toss rings onto what they called the stage. And he was probably one of the key players in that arena, oftentimes able to make the ring shot. So he was our Rookie of the Year as a freshman. Then we also had Nathan Dunn, Noah Harper, Matthew Pankey, Braden Penner, Leo Wisbiski, Andrew Stewart, Brandon Weber, Liam Wheeler, and Winston Winthrow on the team.
So our world ranking was 354th, and that might sound like wow, but there's 3,474 teams in the world. So we were the top 10% with that, if you would like a number. My name's Nicole Chenard. I'm the business team lead and like the administrator that kind of does all the paperwork that's not fun. Some of our other stats this year for you. Last year we won an engineering award, and we stepped up our game this year. We won 2 sustainability awards, one at Belleville out of 40 teams and one at Mason out of 40 teams. So out of 80 teams that competed, we won 2 of the first place award for sustainability. That's for your program, not only the Techno Dogs at the high school level, that's for the 7th and 8th grade program, the Techno Dog or Techno Pups. That's for the middle school and elementary programs, and how we grow those students to go from level to level. What we do in the community, outreaching, talking to schools, kids, community events. So our district and our team won 2 of those awards. So congratulations to everybody. When we were at the State of Michigan competition for FIRST Robotics, there are 4 fields, and the 4 fields play off. We submitted for the Industrial Design Award. The Industrial Design Award is what you see in front of you. It's the kids designing the things in CAD, cutting them out in the machine shop at the high school, putting it all together, building it. And we won 1 out of only 4 awards given in the entire state. So that's a huge achievement as well. It speaks for the volumes of our program, our STEAM Center, our high school courses, and just this year out, like literally hundreds, like 300 hours that these kids have put in this season. So congratulations to them. All right.
I did just want to talk about a little bit about the robot itself and just show you guys what we actually use the machines at the high school for, what the bond money is helping us do, and what the Jordan's classes are allowing us to do. So everything on this robot, all these pieces here, these are mostly made out of aluminum. It was all cut on the CNC router at the high school. So everything in the machine shop down there, pretty much this entire thing was built with the school resources that we had the access to. And then a lot of students, the design, most of the students learn to design everything you see here in Mr. Jordan's classes. So just to credit his classes, that's what allows us to do most of this, because he's taught us a lot. And then lots of late nights made this together. So almost everything here We would turn it on, but it would take a little bit. Figured we wouldn't have time tonight, so.
Anything else? We're all set?
All right. Thank you all so much. Congratulations. And if I can get a picture with you guys, that'd be awesome. Yeah, we'd love to have you. Good job. Great season. Great season. Great job. Great job. Well done. Great job, coach. Thank you so much. Good job. Great job, coach. Well done. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Man, come up here and get a picture of them all.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, here we go. All right, get another one here. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Thanks, coaches.
Well, I want to thank everybody that joined us for Shining Stars this evening. It is always a wonderful part of our work here at the board to see what our students can do with the support of their families, their teachers, and all of their coaches. It is just absolutely astounding what our kids can do. Thank you for sharing that with us tonight.
Right. Okay, next up is a report. Is going to be an update for the board. We have been very aggressive as a school district for quite some time in the area of security and safety for our district. And this past spring, we brought in an outside consultant to do a review of our school district, to look at each one of our buildings, our procedures, our practices, to make recommendations to us. And we received that report in the spring. This is Jason Russell's the president of the company, and he's going to give us a little bit of an update on his findings, and then he's able to answer any board member questions that you might have tonight. So, Mr. Russell, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Rowell. It's great I get to go to a lot of school board meetings, and they're rarely this positive, so thank you for that. And I won't ruin that with what I'm going to talk about. As was mentioned, my firm that I founded in 2012, we were selected to do the safety and security reviews of the district. We work with between 60 and 70% of the public school districts in Michigan, about half of the private school districts. And then we have hundreds of school districts across the country, as well as we work with businesses and some other organizations. The majority of what we do and what we did for Brighton was our assessment process. So basically, when we're doing an assessment, we're looking at everything that touches safety and security in a district. So we're looking at physical security, we're looking at policies and procedures, we're interviewing stakeholders at every level to really talk through safety and security at every level. So we're looking at processes, and we're observing and making recommendations based on those observations. So to do these assessments, we use consultants. The consultant that was used in your district as a retired Oakland County deputy, his name is Jason Lowert. Jason Lowert was an SRO for many years. In fact, his last position he was the school resource officer in Oxford. So very familiar with school safety and security. And generally, when we're completing an assessment, we're finding a lot of different areas to improve. And at the end of that, I have a conversation with my consultant about kind of where does this district stand up to other districts that we've done in the state, and that individual consultant has done. And actually, Jason, when he did this district, he texted me at the end of the first day, and he said, "I'm really having a hard time finding anything," which is good news for the district. So our consultant felt that this was probably the best district that he had assessed in the state of Michigan. So I think that's a huge testament to all the work that has been done. So we did make recommendations. So there was a report that was delivered Typically, our reports in a district this size would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 pages. This district was 23 pages. Certainly areas for improvement, but all very minor. And we've actually started working with the district even on those areas that we recommended. Some of that was on policy and procedure. A lot of it was just on process. The physical security that you had in place was appropriate. Your SROs are doing a great job. Your security, your contracted security firm is doing a good job. We had good cooperation from administrators. A lot of times we go into districts, it's hard to really get accurate information, but there was no apprehension to share information on safety and security issues here. You know, as a parent myself who has children in public schools, I think, you know, the community, it's important for the community to understand that what their district is doing is appropriate to protect kids, because you only see your district, you don't see other districts. And I would say that we were very impressed with the work that Brighton has done and the work that it continues to do. As I mentioned, there were some areas that we recommended some improvement in, mostly minor policy and process things. And as I mentioned, we've already started working with the district on some of those areas. One of the things that I always point out when it exists is a lot of the districts that really need the most help often don't ask for it. And districts that are in a position like Brighton really tend to be more open to having outside people come in and make recommendations. So we made some recommendations in the report. We certainly don't share those recommendations publicly. We never want to share any, you know, areas where we need to improve. But as I mentioned, they were minor. The leadership in terms of safety and security from the district level, I've had multiple meetings with Dr. Outlaw regarding safety and security. Is always very open to suggestions and really wanting to do better for the district and the kids. So as I mentioned, you know, I think the report has been turned over, it's been finalized, and we've begun working on some of the areas that the district is going to continue to improve, and a lot of those are on your emergency operations plans and really creating some consistency across the district. That's a problem that we see kind of universally across the state of Michigan and across the country, frankly. Some communication things in terms of being able to communicate between schools with two-way radios. And then we made some recommendations to the SROs, particularly Livingston County, on making sure that their deputies are touring the buildings as often as possible so they're familiar with the layouts. Those are some of the kind of minor areas that we found just some opportunities for improvement. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I generally won't share specific security related information because we don't want to, you know, talk about any weaknesses that we might have. But even if I were to share them, they were very minor here, and the district is doing an excellent job. And as I said, our consultant was extremely impressed and, you know, said multiple times that this was probably the best district that he's done in the state of Michigan. And he's done dozens of districts for us across the country. So there was high praise coming from him.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
So first of all, thank you so much for making time to come into our board meeting this evening and also for your efforts to conduct your assessment of our district. I think we as a board agree with your sentiment that, you know, in our community, we're very, very fortunate to have community members and administration staff, resource officers like Officer Bell in the back who go out of their way to support safety and security in Brighton. I've been on the board here for about 1.5 years, and safety and security is something that's near and dear to my heart. I had a college football classmate that who I played college football with, who was from Oxford. And I've brought up at prior board meetings to my fellow members of the board, if there's anything that we as a district could learn from Oxford. I've watched the guidepost report out that was done in a public hearing. Obviously, parents, stakeholders of the community came forward, and there were lots of questions asked after the fact. And so as someone who specializes in safety and security of schools, I'm curious, you know, when you reflect on the tragedy that happened there, what do you feel were the most critical takeaways that we should learn from Oxford and be sensitive to, mindful of, aware of?
Yeah. So I'll preface this by saying that I actually was requested to respond to Oxford. So I actually responded and assisted the district as an advisor from about a couple hours after the event for a couple months. So everything that I share is public, right? Probably the biggest area was focusing in on the behavioral threat assessment, right? So the identification of students that are heading down that path, right, that maybe are showing some behaviors of concern. We look at that process in every district we go in to make sure not only does it exist, that's actually the easiest part, but is it being followed with some level of fidelity? This is one of the few districts where we don't have a single behavioral threat assessment process finding, which means we didn't see any issues with not only the process, but how it was being followed. We asked a lot of questions. Obviously, Deputy Lowert was intimately involved. Obviously, he was the SRO. He took the shooter into custody and was in that building every day. So he's particularly sensitive to what happened there and making sure that the districts that he assesses don't have the same issue. So whether it's really, talking with the SROs and making sure that they're involved in that process, but talking with district level staff and then also building level administrators to make sure that that behavioral threat assessment process is being followed with some level of fidelity. And we found that to be the case here. So that would be probably the biggest one. And I think you're already on the path that you need to be on.
Thank you.
Dr. Outlaw, I've just got one follow-up question for the administration. If the recommendations are mostly on the policy side, are we talking board level policy? So those will be coming through the policy committee and to the board table, or are we talking about administrative procedures?
So the most of them are going to be in the administrative area. We're going to have an update. Mr. Anastasov is probably going to give us an update on some of those areas at a future policy meeting. I think we want to kind of talk through some of those pieces. He's been working with SEC on emergency operational plans. That's the area where most of the work is being done, is in that area. It's more procedural versus policy.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thanks.
for being here. I really appreciate it. One of the recommendations coming out of Oxford was the recommendation that you get outside people to come in with fresh, unbiased eyes to look at your districts. So we are so thankful for SEC for coming in and looking. And our plan, we have a team that works on security. We meet one time a month that includes administrators, our police liaison. We have people from the community, people from the state level. We have a team that works on this regularly. And our team is looking at doing these on a regular interval so that we're continuing to be on the cutting edge. We're ahead of things. We're trying to be as proactive as possible. And I cannot say enough about our SROs, our partnership with all of our law enforcement agencies in the area. Everybody's working together. But the big thing that our entire team is working on is being ahead of the game, not being reactive, but being proactive on everything. And I just thank our team for this. They're always looking for gaps. And I think we just have to keep doing that. We have to be diligent every day. It's a sad reality of life, but we want to be as ready as possible. And we appreciate the support of the board through everything. Thank you again. Next up, we have Mr. Jones is going to do our budget hearing.
All right, good evening, everybody. Okay, as is required by state law and board policy, the board must pass a operating budget for next fiscal year. And part of and we also must hold a public hearing to go over the budget and also talk about the tax levy that we are going to ask the taxing bodies to levy for the district. So this is our annual public meeting for our required budget. So what I'm going to go over is actually two pieces here tonight. The very first piece, which is pretty short, is we just have to do a final amendment to fiscal year 2024, just to make sure that at the end of the fiscal year, our budget is in line with what actually is going to happen. And then I will go through in much more detail as to what we put together for our 2025 budget. Okay. And here we go. It's not advancing.
Escape.
Try it again.
Yeah, let's just reboot it there. Let's- All right, let's give her a shot here. Should come up here in a sec here.
To go through the airtime to.
What was that?
Those kids.
Oh, no. We can hardwire it if we have to. Oh, there we go.
Okay, all right, here we go.
It did move. Okay.
All right.
Rule 1 of budgeting, patience and be prepared for anything. Okay, first off, let's go into the 24 amended budget. So based upon the activity over the last 6 months, because we did do an amended budget in January, there are 3 funds that need to be amended for the end of the year, and that is the general fund, the food service fund, and our community education fund. So let me go through the general fund first. So compared to our budget that we passed in January, our revenues increased $1,687,000, about just over 1%. And that was impacted by 4 different things. We did get a favorable pension offset. The state will go through continually throughout the year, and they will do true-ups of our pension program. And sometimes you get good adjustments, sometimes you got bad adjustments, and we were very fortunate that we got a good adjustment. On the interest income side, when I prepared the amended budget in January, I was expecting, there was a lot of talk about the Fed changing the interest rates and lowering the interest rates, which would lower the interest rates that we receive on our funds that are invested. And that did not happen. Rates have stayed the same. So because of that, our interest income has been better than what we projected. And then we started for the second half of the year, we started our preschool program. And so that was brand new. So it was not in the original budget that was amended in January. And then another change is we have a program, it's called the 11T Fund. These are federal funds. And the projects we had in our budget in January, we had those projects being done in this fiscal year and being done by the end of 24. Because of lead times, that is going to be done in the first quarter of 2025. So we just have to move it from one budget period to another. So as far as the expenditures go, expenditures went up about $978,000 over since January's projection. First off is the preschool program. So we get the revenue. Obviously, we have expenses that go with the program. So those had to be recorded. Our pension and healthcare expenses did go up. Those will move quite a bit, and especially they will change a lot in January because enrollment and insurance rate change come January. So we really don't know until we get further into the quarter what that's going to look like. And then same thing related with the 11T, because the change in the revenue, there's also expenses that go with that. So those two move hand in hand. So what that means is our overall net revenues, the net between our revenue and expenses, increased by just short of $710,000. What that adds up to is an overall, for the end of the fiscal year, excess revenues over expenses of $5,347,000. That gives us a projected fund balance of $21,579,000. And more importantly, when you want to look at this, is the percentage. So with school districts, what we look at is our percentage of fund balance, and the belief in the financial arena for fund balance for schools is to be between 15 and 20%. So we're right where we should be. Okay, now I just want to very quickly go through both food service and community ed. I did have to adjust the budget, but these are small amounts. They did not change very much. It's just more to make sure that the actual expenses align with our budget. So basically, our revenues decreased a little bit, and this is just me. I had to project what we were going to do over the last 6 months based on the number of meals that students have, and we had less meals than what we projected. And accordingly, then our expenses went down too. Our excess net revenue went up just about $13,000, which is not a significant amount. And we're looking at a fund balance at the end of the year right now with these numbers, about $1,470,000. Okay, again, in community education, not very big changes between what we did in January, what we're doing at the end of the year. About a $33,000 decrease in revenues. It's barely 0.5%. Expenses did increase mainly in the area, again, with benefits. We all share in the same benefit program. So when the district's benefit program expenses go up, everybody's expenses go up. But in the end, the district will cover whatever the difference is between the expenses and the revenue. We had projected at the beginning of the year to supplement the program with $340,000, and we're ending up with just about $360,000. So it's very close to what we had started at the beginning of the year. All right, let's move into fiscal year 25 and our proposed budget. As is part of the policy for the district, must go through the assumptions that are used to put the budget together. The reason we do this is there's a lot of numbers here that we don't know yet. And we won't know these numbers until the fall at best. So what we do is, because we are required by law to do this by June 30th, we have to put a lot of estimates into our budget. So I'm going to go through what those estimates are so everybody knows what we base this on. So there are 5 budgets because we must approve a budget for all 5 of our existing funds. And that is the general fund, the food service fund, community education, student activities, and the capital fund. All right, so the assumptions that were made for the revenues. The first one is the district gets a per pupil amount that is called the State Aid Foundation. This year it was $9,608. We are assuming a 2.5% increase to $9,848. That is based upon the governor's proposed budget. The legislative branches, one's above, one's below, so we're meeting in the middle. And we're using the governor's plan of 2.5%. When it comes to enrollment, a little bit more art that goes into the enrollment. So here's what was used to project our enrollment, which is just over 10,000, so 10,087.5 FTEs. That is full-time equivalents. That's an increase of about 328. The way that was arrived at was we had an audited pupil accounting report in February, which is always done in February. We use that as our basis. And then we have the district has put together a long-term projection year by year of how our enrollment is going to go up. So I used the projected increase from 24 to 25 and put that in. Then I met with shared services and I got an idea from them what they're anticipating for their FTEs to go up. Put that all together. The state has a formula of how you balance that out. And that's how I came up with the 10,087 FTEs. As far as property taxes go, they are based upon the 2024, so the most recent taxable values that just came out. When it comes to preschool, we had 6 classrooms in 2024. We are planning on having 8 classrooms in 2025, so I built that into the budget. There are 2 new grants which are coming from the state. It is, one's called Kids Back on Track. The other one is called Literacy Improvement. Between the two, that's about $1.2 million of revenue. I did want to bring up a grant, the 31AA grant, which is a large grant. It's about $2 million. It was brand new in 24. And everybody was wondering whether it was going to continue into next year. So the budget proposal right now from the governor shows about 90% funding of the same amount of dollars from last year. So 90% of the dollars from last year to be funded for 2025. But I just want to point out that in that proposal, half of it is a one-time funding. So next year, if everything follows through, this number will be cut in half. And then I went back, interest income, I assumed at $800,000, which is a bit of a decrease because I still think somewhere along the way in fiscal 2025, we will see interest rates go down, and I do not want to budget a high level of interest because that is always out there that can happen. Okay, moving on to expenditures. Our biggest expenditures are salaries. we're coming into year 3 of our current bargaining agreement with the BEA. That shows a 2% increase for next year. There is also in their contract what is called an enrollment trigger. Enrollment trigger is based on multiple factors, but basically as the district grows our state aid revenue, we share part of that with the BEA. When I threw in all my factors that I budgeted, it comes up to a 2.4% increase from the trigger. We've built into the budget 3 new positions that we have talked about, 2 counselors at the elementary schools. So we go from 2 to 4. So now each elementary school will have 1 full-time counselor, and then adding 1 maintenance person who will share time between Hawkins and Scranton. On the benefits side, health insurance I have going up about 1.5%. It's actually a 3% increase, but health insurance doesn't change till January. So we only see half of that impact. And then for a pension expense, it's basically a 1% increase over our run rate. My historical analysis has always showed pension goes up a little bit each year. So what I do is I pull our run rate over the last 3 years, I throw on 1%, and I use that as our budget. It gives us a little bit of protection of increases that are going to come throughout the year. As far as purchase services go, they actually are going down a little bit. The reason is we had a security grant called Section 97 Security, which was actually awarded in 23, but we spent it all in 24. And a lot of it was on purchase services, and that goes away. So those expenses are no longer there. So the overall purchase services are going to go down. A few things which are not a large portion of purchase services, but still are significant to the district that are going to go up is we already got our contract for our athletic trainers, and that has a 50% increase in it over the past year. And then talking with our athletic director, we are expecting the sports officials, the cost of having sports officials to go up around 35 to 40%. Okay, as far as supplies go, the one big, huge piece in supplies is those 2 grants that I talked about that were new from the state. They are adding almost $625,000 to our budget, but that's all covered by grant, so it doesn't take away from our foundation numbers. The preschool program expanding and now being a full year is adding about $35,000 worth of supplies. And then on the utility side, we have contracts. We work with a company that contracts out for futures for electricity and gas. And so they're able to tell me what the expenses are going to be for the next year. So those are built into the budget. So when it comes to capital outlay, a breakdown of that is there's about $295,000 in the budget for all the elementary schools, and that's based upon their current needs. That is lockers, desks, and chairs. At the intermediate and middle schools, about $155,000, and those are the partitions and desks and chairs there too. At the high school, we got about $200,000 in there. There's a few things going in there. We've got windscreens that we want to put up throughout on the outside on the athletic fields. The science room that we want to work on. And I want to say there was one thing, and now my mind is going blank. And then as far as grants go, there is about $1,262,000. That is the 11T dollars that I talked about before. That is to do window replacements and HVAC improvements. That was supposed to be done in 24, that now we're having done in 2025. And then for transportation, we have put into the budget to get 3 new buses for next year and then replace the storage tanks over at the transportation building. All right, what does it all add up to? Just over $128 million worth of revenues. That's about a 2.2% increase, which to me analytically makes sense since the state is giving us a 2.5% increase. We know that our federal funding from the COVID dollars is going away next year. So when you throw all that together, I'm not surprised at all that we got about a 2.5% increase. On the flip side, our expenses were at $126,548,000 for next year. That's an increase of 5.7%. Again, when I look at this analytically, it makes sense to me. You have a 2% increase in salaries. You have a 2.4% increase with the trigger. You have increase in benefits, both between pension and healthcare. So to me, that all does make sense. Here's a breakdown of all the different categories. I don't know if anybody wants me to go through the individual categories, but you can see purchase services going down. So this is basically what it all rolls into. Now, here's a point I want to make, and this goes back to when we had our financial planning meeting in April. And I talked about the fact that I did a high-level analysis and that 24 to 25, there's going to be a significant change in our bottom line because of the change that the federal dollars that everybody was getting from the COVID years, we'll call it, are going away. All that expires September 30th. So when you put all this together, our excess net revenues for next year is $1,488,000. If you recall, when I talked about the final amendment for 24, it was about 5.3 million, and that's all due to the fact that those federal funds are going away. But what I want to point out is this, is the last few years, all that extra money was due to the federal funds that we were getting. And everybody in the finance world, this is the first thing we talked about once these funds started flowing in is don't take your eyes off the fact that in a few years, it's all going to go away, and don't spend the money, foolishly. And we didn't. So for the 4 years before COVID hit, we averaged just about $1.2 million a year in excess net revenues. We're going to 1.5 next year. So basically, and everybody's using this term, we're going back to normal is what's going on. So it gives us a projected fund balance of about 18.3%, which again is in a good sweet spot because it's right in between that 15 to 20% that we're shooting for. All right, food service. Food service is like a carbon copy of 24. There have been no changes to the way they're going to fund food service for next year. We're not anticipating any fluctuation in our meals. So basically, I'm running everything at the same level. 2% salary increases based on the contracts. That leaves us, because of the fact that the state is now funding all meals for the kids, that we have a really good fund balance each year. So we have about a $500,000 budget set for capital outlay for food service. And it leaves them, same as about this year, just over $100,000 worth of excess revenues. Community education, same thing as food service, not a whole lot of changes going on there. We do have the preschool program, which may change our hotspot numbers a little bit, but since we already had it for 6 months, I was able to use the run rate for this year, and I still think we'll come in really close to those projections there. Again, 2% increase, everybody all throughout the district, I added a 2% increase for salaries. I put in $75,000 for capital outlay, talking with John Thompson. BCPA needs a new light board and a new band shell, so we put money in for them to fund that. And then as I pointed out when I did the final 24 budget, the subsidy from the district was about $363,000, and our budget for next year calls for a subsidy of about $340,000, so a little bit better. And then our other small funds, well, actually, student activity is not a small fund. It's not complicated, but it's not small. So what I did for the budget for this is I just used this year's run rate. There's nothing that's telling me that anything's going to be any different next year than what we are running this year. So I basically took this year's activity, which is revenues of $1,550,000, expenditures of about $1.4 million, and that will give us a fund balance at the end of the year of about $1,364,000 for student activity accounts. And then we do have a capital fund. All I have right now in there is we'll get about $20,000 worth of interest because that money sits in a bank and it does earn interest, and about $200 in expenses because we do have to pay a little bit of bank expenses. That will leave us with a fund balance of about $615,000. And then the last piece I must go through is what's called the Form L4029. This is the form that we send to all the taxing bodies from the district that authorizes them to charge the millage rates for the property taxes for next year. So for 2024, or actually the values we use is from 2024, and they just came out from the county, and we had what is known as a Headley reduction. A Headley reduction happens when the value of your properties as an overall base in your district exceeds the increase, actually the consumer price index, so the inflation index. Our increase in property values was about 7.3% here in the district, and the CPI was 5.1%. So when that happens, what happens is your millage rate must go down to you, because we cannot benefit from that growth above the inflation factor. So our overall millage, our voted millage, will go from 19.5669 to 19.512 next year. But by law, you cannot charge more than 18 mills. So we are still perfectly fine to charge 18 mills for our operating millage. And our debt millage for next year is still set to stay at the 6.19, which it was this year. And that is it. Any questions? Yes, sir.
How long have you been here now? A year?
I came in at the end of September.
Okay. And you know, I'd like to thank you for what you do here, but I know you're only doing your job and what's supposed to happen. But I can tell you to me, this is one of the better financial presentations I've seen in the last, 3 or 4 years of your predecessor. So I really like you coming up here and showing us this, that we can all understand this in simple terms, even for the public to be able to look at this and understand how we operate and the type of dollars that we're dealing with.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing your job.
Thank you. Anything else?
I would just echo the same, Dave. Nice job.
Thank you.
You really did a nice job, and it's great to just see not only the data that you shared, but all the facts that you mentioned as you were presenting. The fact that you actually have put a lot of thought into preparing for the presentation means a lot. So thank you.
In a numbers situation here, so the last 3-year employee contract, you brought up the 2% this final year.
Yes,
It was 5%, 3%, and then 2% in the
I
contract.
believe that is correct.
Correct. Okay, so in that, this trigger was in all 3 years then of the
I
contract?
don't know about the first year, but I know it was this year.
Years 2 and 3.
So
2
you're
and 3.
2 and 3. So technically, what was the cost to the district for these increases at this level? Because that is a 10% without the trigger, right? 532,
Yes,
and then 2.4 and say another 2. So is that be like a 15%? 10 for 15%?
yes, because the way the trigger's written into the contract, it builds into the scale. Yep.
It answers that. So do you have a number associated with that 15% increase?
I do not have it ready with me, but I can get that for you, John. No problem.
See what it is. And the reason I bring it up, because our fund balance is showing an increase of a million plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, our net income from shared services is incorporated in these numbers, and that's over 3 million. So technically, without shared services, we'd be a deficit district, not in a budget percentage. We'd have to take it out of our fund balance that we've established, correct?
What are you saying? If it wasn't there, is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
So technically, again, we're on the edge of a not sustainable income source, balancing our budget technically, because we've been so fortunate to have it this last decade plus. And I think the board needs to understand the risk with that, because it is not guaranteed, and it's been
Correct.
a great opportunity. But to sustain these increases that they've awarded in wages without going into a deficit has to be talked about. So,
Right.
but
I can get you those numbers.
I appreciate it. And
problem.
also, I appreciate the clarity of your presentation tonight, because it allows me to ask that question easily without having to flip through 50 pages. And I think that's important. And so that's very thought after. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
One more, actually. For the student fund account, where does that income come from? Is that from the students?
That's the fund. Yes, that's all fundraising.
And is that from gate receipts also?
Pardon me?
Is that gate receipts
Not
also?
gate receipts. Gate receipts go into the general fund.
Okay.
So that is actual fundraising for a specific activity account. So there are, I don't know how many hundreds of activity accounts. They do all their own fundraising, and then they're able to spend that, whatever funds they have in their activity account, they're able to spend.
Okay. So that would, again, if they didn't have that fundraising, technically, they might not be able to do what they're doing. That's a pretty big amount.
Absolutely, they would not be able to do what they're doing. That's right.
We don't fund it as a district, they do it because of their fundraising.
That is correct.
Pretty impressive on the students.
It's incredibly impressive.
Thank you.
I had one question
Okay.
for you on the plans for the capital fund.
Mhm.
Now that it's grown, I know you talked during several of the different fund budgets about expenses planned, larger expenses planned for the next year. Is any of that going to be funded from the capital fund?
So when I built the budget, I intentionally did not, and here's the reason why. I've had discussions with Jesse Nelson, who was the gentleman from Baker Tilly who was here at the last board meeting and gave you all the information about the villages. Okay, so Jesse is our bond advisor. And the discussions I had with him is the rules and regulations around a capital fund. And capital funds have very little rules and regulations. It's very easy to move funds from general fund dollars to capital and back and forth. So without having an actual capital plan yet, I intentionally just left it out. And then what we can do is when we settle upon a capital plan and we go to do an amended budget, that's when we'll change the budget.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
If there are no further questions, thank you, Mr. Jones.
You're welcome.
All right. That moves us to the call to the public section of our agenda. And I just want to go through a couple of quick things before we get started. Thank you to the folks that have already submitted cards. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak tonight, there are comment cards in the back that you can fill out and turn in. So Ms. Mosier can bring them to me. I will call the names of the folks that have submitted cards so that they can come up and talk. We allot 3 minutes per person to speak. Dr. Krebs will be keeping time and will show a yellow card when we're at 30 seconds to go and a red card when your 3 minutes are up. We appreciate everyone's comments and look forward to hearing what you have to say. But just as a reminder, if you haven't joined us for Call to the Public before, this is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts and concerns with us, but it's not a question and answer session, so we will not be responding back to any questions that you pose to us from the board table tonight. Thank you for joining us. Our first speaker is Charles Leland.
Hi, my name is Charlie Leland, and I'm pleased to have a chance to address you. I'm a member of the Brighton Senior Center, and I've participated in their program for Body Spot Silver, which is an exercise program for seniors for about 3 or 4 years. And it's been a wonderful experience. And I would just like to say that the Brighton Senior Center, which is, of course, part of the Brighton area schools, has been a wonderful place to keep active, to keep learning, to socialize. And I think that one of the things that we've all realized is that for seniors particularly, isolation is deadly, particularly as we learned in the COVID outbreak. When people were isolated, they did not do well. The Senior Center is one of our community resources that helps people to not be socially isolated. And I think that, being part of an exercise program helps keep me in better shape. I've met friends there and I've had very stimulating conversations at the Senior Center. I'm very appreciative of the Brighton area schools for making the Senior Center one of its programs. It's an important thing for seniors. I think one of the things that we're all aware of is the changing demographics in Brighton and Livingston County, in the state of Michigan, and in the United States in general. At a recent conference in the Southeast Michigan area, it was projected that in the next 5 years, the senior population of Brighton and Livingston County will change very significantly. The senior population is projected to grow 66% to approximately 58,000 seniors. Conversely, the number of students is likely to decrease to 14 to 18,000. It is my understanding that the Brighton area schools are considering a large expansion of a free preschool program proposed from Lansing. It's supposed to be for all 4-year-old children in the area, and it's to be funded by the state legislature at a cost of $160 million for the entire state. At the last that I found out, it had not been funded yet. The Brighton area schools may need up to 20 classrooms to begin this program in the fall. And I understand that 2 of the classrooms which were previously used for the Senior Center for Exercise and Education classes have now been appropriated to this program. You know, when our children were of school age, we did not live in the Brighton area. And I'm sorry that I wasn't here. It's a wonderful school district. I'm glad to hear what's happening here. As a senior, I will not have any children in the schools that will be part of most of the budget that we talked about tonight. But my tax dollars will provide for the school funding. I firmly believe it's really important to invest in the future of children through a really active, strong school system, okay? Oh, is that at the end? Okay, I just have one thing to say. I think that we should look at the demographic trends and see where we want to invest our money. If we're going to go and spend all of our money in decreasing demographics, that's not the best place to perhaps do it.
So I'm going to just give a little update on the senior center. Last week, our senior center director, Jody Valenti, put out a communication to members of the senior center. Just want to be very clear that the only thing that's changing for next year is it's called room C and D. It's in the back. It's literally the only change that's happening to the senior center. They're going to move it to another location. Our preschool program, all of the rooms are set. You saw tonight that there are going to be 8 classrooms. Those are able to be accommodated on the other side of the building. Everything's there, but that one room, C and D, is one that needs to be used by preschool. That was a preschool room up until a few years ago. It was not being used, so the senior center was able to use that room over the last few years for some expanded programming. We are not going to cut anything from the senior center. And I think the board can reassure you of that. Nothing is being changed. We support lifelong learning. We support the senior center. There is no reductions in that. The only change is that preschool program needs to utilize that during the school day, that one room in the back. Other than that, nothing is going to change. Just wanted to be clear on that. Is there anything else?
No, thank you.
So just being clear on that. Sure.
Our next speaker is Mary Ann Leland. Terry Valco.
My concern, as far as losing that room, I was wondering, is there a way that you could divide it to where we could still use half the room? Give half to the children or not? If not, my other concern is this. I know you told us that no other changes will be around. Is it guaranteed that this will not lead to us losing other rooms? Because we have our pool room that's not only just for pool, but it's also for all kinds of other events, like our Wii event. And it's also being used as our library, and it's also being used for our tax preparation. We also have our arts and crafts room, which is used for a variety of games, events, and it's also used as far as our tax preparation during tax time as well. But now losing C and D room, okay, my understanding is that they are going to push seniors up more up front as far as the tables and stuff. And what bothers me here is that we won't fit as many tables, like say for our basket bingo events that we have monthly that bring in at least 75 seniors. Now, my understanding is normally I would say put children first, actually, But in this case, I feel that there will be more seniors using that room than there will be children. I just really feel this way. But I was wondering if you could even try and divide that room. But if not, I want to know if you are pushing us up towards the front more. Will we be crammed in? Because losing a room means we don't want to be in the way of the children. So are we going to be pushed up front? Are you, in other words, are we going to have the same amount of room and that one big space that they have in the middle? Are we going to have the same amount of room there as we do now? You know what I'm trying to ask?
Yep, we'll respond to that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. And that's, I just want to make sure that if we're going to lose that room, if you can accommodate us to still have the same big area that we have now, because we lose any part of that big area that we have now, we are going to lose our basket bingo events. We are going to lose our, just so much more events. Our euchre club, which is a huge, huge event. You don't want to cram those people in. Our bingo is a huge event. You don't want to cram us all like up front. Will it be allowed to where as many seniors can come to our events as we have now? That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Can I do a quick response? So just to be clear, when I say nothing else is changing other than the children are using the room C and D, nothing else is changing. The large room where the tables are at now, they are staying in the same exact spot. All the programming, the director has made it really clear, there's no going backwards in programming. There might be this move to this, there might be some creativity with the exercise classes from C and D, but they're going to have those exercise classes. The billiards room and the little game room or activity room on the side are not even being touched. And then this might be a question that you have down the road is what happens the next year if the program continues to expand? I just want to be clear. The senior center side of the Miller complex is not ideal for preschool. You've seen those rooms and they're very small rooms. We have contingency plans. We're doing some renovations in this building, as you saw in the budget. We don't see a big expansion going into that. That's not the solution to our early childhood program is going in there. So just maybe that will alleviate some of that fear. We don't see that being a spot where we're going to need to take this area over for our students. Those rooms are going to remain. The large room's going to remain.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Rose Cartwright.
First of all, thanks for listening to you. And I want to introduce myself. My name is Mary Rose Cartwright. I'm in my 98th year of living.
All right.
My professional job was managing and directing a family YMCA, which had a campus of 5 acres and 3 buildings. One was a pool building, which was the only Olympic-sized pool from Detroit to Ann Arbor. And so we were very busy. We had all kinds of programs. It was a family, and if you had a baby 6 months old, we could take care of it. If you were old, you could stay as long as you wanted and do what you wanted. And we were very, very busy. My husband thought I was at the YMCA to have fun. I loved my job. And I retired, and moved to Brighton to be near a son. And I first just walked around and was kind of lost. But we have family here that own businesses and family in Lansing. So we went back and forth. and we knew Brighton. And when I found out that there was a senior center, that was my goal. And so today I take two yoga programs. Tuesday and Thursday I do yoga. I walk to the Brighton Center. It is probably 3/4 of a mile. I walk in every kind of weather. You can ask them. I come dressed in a rain hat, raincoat, rain galoshes, and everybody laughs. But I come even in the winter. I'm careful as I walk. I eat right. I do my exercises, and I have my family at the Brighton Senior Center, and that makes life worthwhile. I'm planning on having my 100th birthday, which is in 2 years, at the Brighton Center, and I wanted to make sure there was room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like a job if we hire you? Dr. HR, where HR's right here. Here it is. Please, yeah.
Our
Can you
next
apply?
speaker is Bob Stee. I hope I pronounced that right.
You know what? How can I? With respect to your time, I feel confident in Dr. Outlaw, in this whole Board of Education, that you have seniors up there, and you're gonna take care of them, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Johnson.
Yes. It's a bitch getting old.
Wrinkle in there. It's got a wire under it. That's why.
I'm Sean Johnson. I'm going to give you a brief history lesson. 40 years ago this night, I was sitting where one of you are sitting. We had an audience as big as this, but they were a lot younger. And their problem was, I was on the board when we closed Miller School. And the audience wanted to know where in hell their kids were going to go to school. We transported kids from Old 23 in Grand River, clear out to Maupe area. We had them all over, but it was a real fun job. I was also on the board when we investigated going to an intergenerational building. We got some flack, but it was a real job. We did it. And the thing that came out of it that we were really happy about was that the old folks are not so good students in our tot spot. They got together great because the older people took care of the babies, and the ones in between the high school students, they melded right in. It's a great facility. I hope you keep it going, but I have the other unique position is when I'm doing exercise or yoga, chair yoga, and she does a lot better than I am, and I'm 14 years younger than she is I have two great grandkids playing out in the playground. All my children graduated from Brighton High School. It's a great school. I had one that went Limbaum through the high school, and now I got great grandkids here. So I want all programs protected, but you really got to take care of us seniors, please. Then I've said to myself, I don't know if the bond issue that was passed in, I think 89, implemented in 90, there was direction that was a senior center. So I would hope that you wouldn't violate the board members at that particular time that we started that senior center. Quick note, we sold the Brighton or Ricketts School. These seniors were meeting in the basement of the Ricketts School, and we brought them out and put them out here, and it's been a very successful program. I sure hope you keep it going
at the rate it's going. And I'd like to see some of you come visit once in a while. You might see some very active people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I apologize if I get this wrong. Is it Loy or Lloyd Loeffler? Locker? I'm sorry, sir.
Hello, yeah, my name is Lloyd Lockard. After retiring 30 years from an automobile, I used to drive all the way down to Voney and back and stop at the gas station. You know, was a guy, he used to work way down there past I did. So after we retired, me and my wife, so my neighbor down the street, she belonged to the Brighton Senior, she's gone. Her husband, after he passed on, she joined the Brighton Senior, and she met some guy there, but they're both gone. And my friend up north, he's gone. He lived to be 80. I told him, I said, why don't you join the senior place? And I think he did. So when I started going to senior place, that guy used to come in the gas station. He worked at a past where I did. I see him at the senior place about 2 months ago. He plays cards. So we used to meet together and go in the same place. We stopped at the Shell station, got our supplies, and go home. I mean, go to work. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Leilani Taisha?
Hi, I think that you've heard from a number of us, and so I'm going to pass and just say that I hope you do keep the senior center as it is, because the sense of community that we get from being together and not having our activities parsed out, it's immeasurable. The social support that people receive from that center cannot be put into words. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen Quinn?
Good evening. My name is Colleen Quinn, and I live in Genoa Township. I'm going to adjust my comments based on what we've heard. However, my husband and I have been members of the Brighton Senior Center, and we've attended the Body Spot Silver exercise program for almost 10 years. And we were disturbed to hear about the potential changes due to the board's consideration of taking these funds to participate in a free preschool program. I have concerns about free money because there's not any free money. It always comes with strings attached. And I wonder, has the board considered the possibility of jumping headfirst into this program and then the potential election of a new state legislature, which might end this program before it starts? If so, the board will have caused a major disruption and might be on the hook for these funds. You'll get everybody jacked up about it. I don't think this is a legitimate role of government or my tax dollars. I think it's glorified babysitting, and I don't think the board should have any part of it. Again, I don't want the seniors to get shorted. Charlie cited the demographics. Seniors are a growing demographic. So I would look to maybe proposals to expand for the seniors. And another troubling thing is a June 8th article from WHMI. And it says there are no plans to close or move the Brighton Senior Center. Great. However, it goes on to say it will be expanding preschool offerings as the building is at capacity. Thus, the senior center will be used temporarily for preschool during the day. Now, it's been a long time since I graduated from GMI, now Kettering, and you can call me stupid, but what the heck does that even mean? It sounds like, in spite of the comments, preschool is taking precedence, so maybe we could get a new article out to fix the WHMI article. There's also mention of a free membership to the senior center. Wow, we just paid our annual dues last week. So I guess to sum it up, I just think you need to think twice about taking free money. And I have just an issue with government. Oh, free, 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 let's do this. It's not free money, it's tax dollars. And I don't think the government needs any more control over our children. Thank you.
Karen Jewell. Karen Jewell.
I'm a newcomer to the senior center because I set a goal to improve my physical well-being this year. So I was delighted to come into the Silver Spot program. But I want to say Dr. Charlie invited me to the center. We had coffee and I was amazed and impressed by what's offered there. And just last week, I invited someone from the class to come and see the center itself. And she said, wow, I never knew this was here. So I want to encourage all of us to invite friends and family to come in and see the center, and for the board to put money into promoting the senior center. It is a shining star, and there is so much more potential for it than what's already there. As an example of that, and Colleen, I appreciate your comments about taxpayer-funded preschool. And I have to agree. Why are we involved in taxpayer-funded preschool? As a former licensed daycare provider, that was an issue for me. And John, I remember the fundraising through taxation to open the intergenerational center. And it was supposed to be that kindergartners and seniors had opportunity to come together where seniors could read to kindergarten students. And I don't think any of that's happening anymore. But let me tell you about the Body Spot program. At 67, I am wowed. I mean, wowed by what some of these 85-plus-year-old people are doing on the floor exercising that I cannot begin to do. You talk about a bright, shining star. Oh, my goodness. And I want to bring to light Judy, who has been the instructor since 1982, 42 years. Judy, stand up and take a bow. And folks, the 2% increase doesn't apply to this program. Judy hasn't had a raise in 20 years. There's a problem with that. There's a real problem with that. I have no idea what the director of the center gets paid, but I tell you, when I met her, when Dr. Charlie took me in that first time, and introduced me to her, I said, when I was here years ago, when my kids were students in this building, the senior center didn't look anything like this. And she said, God bless her, when I was hired and came in here, it looked old. And old people don't want to be in a place that looks and makes them feel older. And so I did some updates here. God bless her, because it is a pleasant place to go and a pleasant place to share meals and fellowship. One last comment. I see the red card. Thank you. It hasn't been mentioned yet, and it needs to be said. This is also a place where disabled veterans are brought from residential housing to have a change of scenery and to have interaction with one another. And that's a vital need in our community. So please, I'm asking you to increase your expenses for the senior center and ask us to do our part to fundraise like the students do too, because some of us can do it. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Charles Graham.
Thank you to the board for listening to us, and thank you to the other speakers. A lot of good information has been shared, a lot of what I was going to share as well. My wife and I moved to Brighton in 1998, 25 years ago. Retired 6 years ago. I worked several different part-time jobs, and I found myself feeling lonely. I didn't have the daily interaction that I was getting through work. And the Surgeon General of the United States has said that loneliness and isolation can be as deadly to seniors and other people as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. This loneliness and isolation can lead to dementia, strokes, as well as increased risk of heart disease, depression, and anxiety. So looking back on some surveys that were taken, in 27% of adults ages 50 to 80 in 2018 reported feeling of loneliness and isolation. During COVID, it got worse, got up to about 56%. And as Mr. Jones said, going back to normal post-COVID, more recently it went down to 34%, still 8% over what it was pre-COVID. So it's still an issue. So thinking about it, there are approximately 60,000 seniors ages 50 to 80 or 50 and above in Livingston County. The total population has grown since the 2020 census by 1.5%. So it's likely the senior population has grown as well. And as mentioned, that the Brighton Senior Center is celebrating 50 years now. And it's the 50th anniversary from 1974 to 2024. And it's expanded and grown. And Jody Valenti, I believe, as all of us believe, she's done a very good job in expanding it and marketing and bringing new life into the center. And there are certain things that City of Brighton is going to start offering free memberships. So that will only bring, I think, more people into the Brighton Senior Center. And as Terry was talking as our second speaker, I handed out some maps of what the Senior Center looks like now. And as you can see, taking away a classroom C and D is basically taking away 25% of the senior center's current. And that's after we took away 10 or 15 or 20% before when they took classrooms A and B. So it's a meeting place. It's a place for games and interaction. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's often 80 to 100 people for bingo, especially on the weekends. Mondays and Wednesdays have euchre parties. It's usually 40 to 60 people participating in euchre, and the tournaments are even more so. That doesn't even mention the exercise classes. I handed out some calendars as well of some of the activities that go on at the Brighton Senior Center. So I would agree that some of you who might be over 50 should come check us out and see what goes on during the day. Thank you.
Last of the cards, so that will close our call to the public. Thank you for your comments and concerns tonight.
Ms. Reed, can I ask just a question about this discussion, or do you want to defer to a future meeting?
Yes, can we do that, please?
You want to defer?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Unless it's got something to do with the budget, and then we can talk about it. We'll get into that. Okay, well, let's put that with our budget discussion. That's later on the agenda. If we could go on to our 4 action items. Item A, regular meeting minutes of May 13th, 2024. Do we have a motion? Moved by Dr. Krebs. Any support? Support by Mrs. Marks. Any discussion on the minutes? Yeah, sorry. Yeah. All right, all in favor? Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? And that passes 6-0. That'll move us to item B, special meeting minutes of June 3rd, 2024. Do we have a motion? Moved by Dr. Krebs. Any support? Support by Mr. Storm. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes 6-0. Moves us to item C, the Human Resources Report. Mr. Anastasov.
All right, good evening. So first off, I do want to point out that right before the board meeting started, I did go around and hand everybody a revised human resource report. So it took our new hires from 6 to 11, just so you're aware of that. Before I get started on a couple things with this, I did notice there is a couple errors I do want to correct. The first one is the second new hire. Hannah Beebe is not at Brighton High School. It's at Hilton. Yeah, we do have gifted programs, but for kindergartners to head to the high school, that might be a jump for us at this point. So the other one is Jennifer Gleason, also said Brighton High School. That is actually Scranton Middle School's STEAM teacher. So I think Brighton High School was the default, and then it, for some reason, was never modified. So those are two edits to that, just so you're aware of where they're going. Just to give you a quick rundown of the process. So we posted for these positions for about 5 weeks ago, posted for 2 weeks. We had an excellent application pool. Both the lower L, upper L had over 100 applications each. The other positions had quite a few applicants. Obviously, it varies. Science and stuff like that, it's more 15 to 20 with more some of the more common positions. But we went through, screeners were sent by principals. They did in-person interviews with the building team, and then they did teaching demos after that. So they went through a 3-step process. The admin met with them, references called, they recommended them to HR, where then I met with each of the candidates to set up before. Obviously, I put them on the sheet to recommend them tonight. So that was the reason for some of these later ads, is because I was meeting with them on Thursday, Friday, and then I met with even 2 of them today due to the next board meeting not being until July, to give them some kind of finalization for the next month. So tonight, like I said, for these ones, I am recommending the 11 here. We are looking at probably having at least 3 in our July meeting as well that we're not able to make this round, that are still going on. And then if there is any other unexpected ones at this point, but there's only 3 more that would be lingering out there.
Do we have a motion to approve the HR report?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Krebs, support by Mr. Conley. Any discussion?
I'd like to make a comment on the band hire, because I know that was a big position that some concern. I was really impressed with the process. So I was just sitting on the final interview and on the process, and I just want to give the administration a kudos for doing such a nice, thorough job. They actually had the candidates conducting with the students. They had some students that they kept, I think it's a class of around 40 students that each of the candidates were able to conduct with. And they got the feedback from the students in terms of what their reaction was. So I think that was a nice aspect. They also include parents, teachers, administrators, and other performance arts faculty in there. So I just wanted to give the administration really did a nice job on that. Thank you.
Any other?
They did do a great job setting those up.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, just to continue from what Dr. Krebs just mentioned, I was going to ask a question about the band instructor as well. And just if you could, Jacob, share background, experience.
Of the particular candidate?
Yep, Mr.
Yeah,
Singh.
so he has been at Monroe Public Schools for the past 6 years. That's where he was hired. So he went to college at Michigan State, where he actually participated in the Michigan State Marching Band as well as part of his experience. He's currently working on his master's. I think it's expected a year from about today, year in the summer, to wrap up his master's in the music program as well. So he taught and directed the Monroe. Yeah.
I'm sorry, just interrupt and say that's at U of M. So his
master's?
undergrad was
Yes.
Michigan State, but his master's at U of M.
Thank you. We need
So
to give
yeah,
U
both
of M
of
its
those.
props as well. Absolutely. Being a U of M graduate myself, I appreciate that. And so he, has been a director at Monroe Public Schools High School for past 6 years, where he's led that program, increased the numbers as well, which is a school of approximately probably graduating classes of around that 400, 500. So fairly similar to the size of Brighton. Yep.
Add, one of the parents that participated in the panel went out of their way to contact me and tell me how they were thrilled with this choice. So they're very excited. They have a student in band and they think it's a fantastic selection.
Yeah, and especially this one, it was very, very much of a unanimous choice. When I say unanimous, that's not just saying that it was, everybody was on the same page.
And the pool was fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, we had all kinds of experienced, successful folks that we were choosing from. So that's what we want. That's what we had at the elementary too. We had choices between stars.
Yeah, Mr. Evans, I believe, started with 20 screeners on his candidates, most of them sitting directors at that point, with a few new ones, but good pool.
So I know during the summer, they have these different camps and the drumline meets. When does this person start and when does this stuff continue, I'm assuming? Or?
Yeah, I can answer. So in a couple weeks, because he's actually out of the country for a couple weeks. So, but we're going to have a meeting with him to discuss exactly that. Not only logistics for the upcoming year, but also logistics for the summer. So even though a lot of these hires, their official start date is that August 28th, we will be working with him to figure out how to get him involved in the summer, which he shared with me was a similar process when he got in Monroe Public, where they had him start on some of the summer stuff as well. So he's used to it and he's ready. At the end of June, he's ready to go. Yeah, good question.
It's Mrs. Hoffman's last day.
So she will be here for the whole first semester of next year. So it would be last day would be in January at the end of the semester.
We're very fortunate for that. Good. And then regarding our STEM/STEAM teacher that was hired for Scranton Middle School, was there a good candidate pool for that as well?
There was, and there was pretty strong candidate, not quite the 20 screeners as the other one, but I know when they came down to it, Dr. Jim Darga was also part of the process along with our two administrators. They came down to, they had two very, very strong candidates at the end. They said to narrow it down to this individual, and this one has more than 15 years of experience, but 15 years of experience in STEAM education, specifically 2 programs, starting them kind of from the ground up, which was important as part of this role to be able to have that experience, but also be able to write curriculum, form programs, and those type of things, which she has 2 out of her 3 locations she's been at.
Has she had a chance to go through our facilities and she saw Scranton in high school yet, or is she?
I'm not sure if she's went through.
Been through the high school and our middle school program that we
She's
currently.
current, you talk about Scranton. Yes. She's a current parent, has a daughter at high school. So I'm not sure about touring there, but she did tour Scranton with Cody and myself.
Yeah, and that's a good point. As a parent, yeah, she's familiar with it.
Good. That's the beginning. Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 6-0. And moves us to the BHS grade level principal.
Right, so that's me as well. So we have our second and last, I believe, administrative hire of the year. So the grade level principal, obviously after Mr. Evans got the lead principal position, created the vacancy there. So we are recommending tonight Jennifer Napoli. And so just to give you a quick background on this, we did have more interested, but 66 fully applied for the position. Again, an amazing pool up there with band, probably some of the best pool of candidates we had. We screened 20. We sent 8 to a first interview, 4 to a second interview, and then we sent 2 more to a final interview. So they went through quite a extensive process, called references, all those things. Excellent references came from there. She's actually coming to us from a Florida district. So we actually went national with this one. So, but soon to be a Brighton parent and resident herself, which is cool to add to the program. So excellent candidate as far as, again, unanimous choice by the group, and a good add. One thing we were looking for was who would be able to work well and collaborate with our 3 admin, but also be able to offer some new skills and be able to challenge the program and stuff as well. So she did very well.
Motion? May I say something? Just a second. Or do we have to motion?
Can we-
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking this one was separate. I forgot this one was separate.
Yes.
I was thinking something. I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by Dr. Krebs, support by Mr. Conley.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, I see in her, in the documentation that she does have a Michigan administration
She
certificate.
does, yes,
So that
she
was,
does. Yeah, she's actually a Michigan individual, went to Florida for a little bit, come back, but yeah, she does have all certifications current for the job.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Did we have any internal candidates that applied from within our system that already are working for us?
We did have a couple of, I believe, full out of the 66, I believe we had 3 internal candidates, and we did have a couple that went through the screening process. Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 6-0. Moves us to item E, appointment of representative to the LESA PAC. Dr. Outlaw?
So we discussed this at the last meeting. Katie Boggs is unfortunately not able to be here, but she was our PAC representative previously here for the Brighton area schools. But the recommendation is that the board approve Katie Boggs to be our representative on the PAC through June 30th, of 2027.
Is there a motion? Support? Support. Okay, support by Mrs. Marks. Any discussion?
Will she be here in the future?
So yeah, we can definitely invite her. She was not able to be here this evening.
But is she on the calendar to come here sometime?
So we've requested that she come meet the board, so.
Mr. Conley?
If I'm going to recommend somebody, I'd certainly like to meet them. So that's a no for me.
I appreciate Ms. Boggs being willing to take on this.
Same.
It's a huge volunteer role and speaks to her commitment to the students in the district that she's willing to take that on and take on the extra meetings. Mr. Storm?
I don't remember if it was for this particular item or another related to Lisa, but I thought we had some conversation on why we as a board are required to support this or other related nominations. And I guess, did that ever get resolved or clarified as relates to legality or the need for us as a board to vote on this item? If we've never, I can't speak for everyone, but for a number of us, Bill and John, volunteered their comment a minute ago. I've never met this individual, and I'm just wondering, what is the validity of us or Andy Storm voting on this one? I've never personally met or received any correspondence from this person in my life.
Dr. Outlaw?
I can check to see if it's a statutory requirement or if it's a local requirement. This is the process they have. I know when I was in Oakland County, we had the same thing. When I was in Oakland County, we every year had to approve, we had to approve a representative to be part of this council. I can check to see if it's a statutory requirement or if it's a best practice. As far as the budget goes, I think that was the other approval of the LESA budget. The reality is that the board has choice in that. If you vote no, it's still there. It's like an endorsement of their budget more. That is not a statutory requirement. If everybody votes no, it just tells them that they need to go back and continue to work on their budget. It is their budget, but this one is choosing Brighton's representative to this council.
No, I understand.
So,
I guess
no, I
for me,
get it.
it's one less thing. If we as a board were to support not having to address this, like it's one less thing that's on our agenda. And again, if there's merit, I understand, but voting for someone who I've never met in my life is, to me, lacks merit.
Sure. I'll ask that question.
Can I appreciate you wanting to get to know the person who is volunteering this, but we just approved how many hires for the district that we've never met.
That's
That we're
different.
basing it on Mr. Anastof's and the administration's recommendation. This is a recommendation now from Ms. Allison. So we don't have to meet everybody. I'm following their recommendations.
Are we under a time frame to get this done? So I'd like to make a motion to postpone this until she comes in and people are comfortable with voting for her.
Support.
Okay. Exactly how should this work from a procedural standpoint? Is this a separate, is this a motion to table? Is this a motion to amend?
I think you have to amend the first motion. I think you're going to need to withdraw that, and then I don't know that you have to take a formal to say we're tabling it. Once you withdraw the motion, yeah, we can just move on.
No, this is a motion to amend the other motion to wait for us to meet her before we decide. Or have her come in here at least.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we're going to be voting. We've got a motion to amend the existing motion to approve the volunteer to not approve the volunteer until she comes to the board meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Or until we have a chance
To not act on.
I mean, that sounds like a motion to table.
Okay.
Okay, so we have,
But I want it in there in the fact that the reason for tabling it is because she hasn't been here yet.
okay,
Okay, that's the whole reason.
so a motion to table until the representative comes to a school board meeting.
Sure.
Moved by Mr. Trombley and supported by Mr. Conley. Okay. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. That's 4 ayes and nay, nay, and 2 noes. Passes 4-2. Okay, that takes us to our policy updates. Mr. Anastasov, would you like to start, or Dr. Outlaw?
We talked about this at the last meeting. I think Ms. Reed is the policy chair. If you have any comments, or Mr. Anastasov, otherwise just take questions.
Yeah, we haven't, I haven't gotten any questions by email or otherwise from the other board members. So what you've got in front of you is the extension of the work that the ad hoc fundraising committee did to put some clearer rules around the fundraising that our students and parents do for the district and using district facilities. We've had a lot of those in place from a procedure standpoint throughout the year this year, and I think overall we've learned a lot. It gives us clarity on what that $1.5 million that our students are raising actually is being raised for, so that we as a board can be better informed on, you know, what it is folks think they need that's outside of our budget. I appreciate that clarity and transparency. It also helps our community know what it is our students are fundraising for and how they can expect those funds to be spent, so they have more confidence when they are donating money at car washes and bake sales and all of the other things that our students do. So I appreciate all of the work that the administration put into this, especially the finance team. They did a ton of work to put together this process, to stand it up, and then to prepare the documentation for it. And I'm very appreciative of that. So do we have a motion? So moved. Moved by Dr. Krebs. Support. Support by Mrs. Marks. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Trombley.
So, page 20, number 4 that's in red.
Yes.
Was that due to our conversation with me selling the donuts and shrooms decision? Is that what that's reflective of?
In part, yes.
Okay. And then moving forward with fundraising, Is there anything that's been addressed yet with the band and their concession sales in regards to fundraising?
Well, the band boosters, since they are a separate organization, doesn't follow exactly the same rules as everyone else. If you'll let me continue, there are policy provisions in here for fundraising that require certain approvals for the use of our facilities and bringing vendors onto our campuses that are going to use our facilities that apply to the band boosters just like they do everyone else.
So because they're called Brighton Band Boosters, they support the Brighton Band, they're on our facility, they solicit from the people that show up at our sporting events, but they're not part of this.
They are a separate 501c4,
Right.
I think.
Okay, so again, from a fundraising standpoint, where do those type of groups fall into this? Because again, you want to talk about cash and transactions. I mean, there's a lot of it that flows through there.
So they are part of the approval process. It applies to 501c3 organizations. It applies to all of our internal there's 3 different tabs in our transparency document if you go to it. So everybody that is doing any fundraising, whether you're a 501c3, an outside organization, or one of our own, are all going through the approval process. And those have to be approved, and the guidelines are in there. So yes, they are on.
I think that section is on page 24.
Yes, it's on 24D. 24 on section D is the approval process.
And it explicitly calls out other groups like booster clubs in subsection B above that as well.
For instance, the senior all-night party, did they turn an application to the school to get approval to use the facilities?
Yes, I believe they're on the transparency document. I would have to verify that, but
Did they actually submit a formal application to use the facility and then have it approved?
Are you talking
I-
about facilities use or are you talking about
Yes.
fundraising?
Both. Facilities use was one. The other is fundraising.
I would need to check just to verify on the transparency document, but I believe, because that comes to me, I believe I went through the whole approval process. It goes to me, and then it went to the finance department for their review as well.
I'd be interested to know if they turned it, because that's a board, it's a policy of the school.
I'll pull it up as we're talking.
So if they're an outside operation, yes, they are.
They're part of PTO.
They're their own 501c3 now.
Totally separate, 100%. And want to make sure that that policy is being followed, because my concern with that is the transparency is not there, because I asked for records from that party a year or 2 ago and I never got any. Reiterate that I'd sure be interested to see what that senior all-night party generates in Brighton area schools, and know if there's a profit or loss on it, if they lose money on it, whatever. But if there's a P&L, they're certainly easy to know, find out what's going on with it and how much fundraising, where the fundraising, how it's done, and who contributes to it. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Reed, the only question that I have the only item that I have a question about in the policy documents is related to page 24 under reasons that are not appropriate to fundraise or collect money from parents, students, and or staff members. Bullet 1 is classroom supplies, furniture, classroom equipment, or staff-related needs. You know, and others on this board know, I've brought up on a number of occasions that, we're fortunate. We heard it tonight. We talked about it this evening and have at many prior meetings that we live in a district where we have a very healthy budget and we have strong support amongst the board, strong support amongst the community to provide the best classrooms possible for our students, for our teachers, our educators. And based on the number of children I have in this district, I get all the emails that come asking for donations of markers and erasers and all the different supply, Kleenex boxes and all the different supplies that are used, baby wipes in classrooms. And I've advocated at this table, and again, tonight, I just want to make sure we have the funds in our district to provide our educators, our teachers with every supply they need to provide instruction to our children at all grade levels. And I just want to make sure that I'm interpreting this properly, that, you know, whether the fundraising is done at collecting monetary checks, cash, or whether it's in-kind goods and services, it's the principles are the same. Am I interpreting that correctly? I see.
That's my understanding.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Because if there's any instructor, teacher, member of the education community within BAS that needs monetary support to purchase supplies for their classroom, we as a district can provide that and are committed to providing that. And no teacher should have to send emails to parents asking for boxes of Kleenex or dry erase markers or crayons or glue. Okay, all right.
That was certainly the feedback from the ad hoc fundraising committee. That was Dr. Krebs and Mrs. Marks and I.
That will be for all the parents in this district that get those emails and go to Walmart the week before school and scramble with grocery carts. That will be a huge improvement for every parent in this district.
All
And I think
schools
there are-
get a supply budget.
That's,
They all do, absolutely. And I work with all the principals on their supply budget. And it's actually, we have a standard amount based upon the level of the school as to per student, how much they get every year.
Okay.
And there was bulk purchasing of Kleenex this school year. So that was a shift. You probably didn't get any requests for Kleenex this year, and some of those type of supplies. So we made pivots at the beginning of the 23-24 school year in that area. The one caveat I want to throw out is there are still going to be supplies where my son's going to buy the markers that he wants to use and highlighters
yeah.
and all that. I just want to be clear
Child
on
has a
that.
preference, that's one thing. I'm saying,
Absolutely.
we won't get blanket
Just-
emails begging us for boxes of dry erase markers and
Nope.
toilet
And-
paper and Kleenex and.
And we have had parents come to us and said, we understand that you're not allowed to ask for this. Can we bring this in? And we're like, lovely. And we have a lot of parents that want to bring stuff in. Great, thank you for that, but we're not asking for it. So, okay?
Yeah, it is. But on that note, it's been a continuous thing over the decades I've been here to send home a request list with students. It's absolutely shouldn't happen. And the reason it shouldn't happen is because some students can't provide. The idea is that we are here for all students, and the ones who want to volunteer and bring in resources, that's great. But this is a public school, so I disagree with the markers, that we should supply. If the students have all blue, red, purple markers, we should supply them. If one student has them, they all should have them if they're required in the course. Now, and I also would like it sent out to our teachers that we are asking them not to request anything from our students. It needs to go out via email from the superintendent's office. Don't ask your kids to bring in pencils. Don't ask them to bring in Kleenex and hand sanitizer like they do occasionally. And I understand why they do it. It offsets it does offset the budget for that building. It's not necessarily an intentional thing, but it's been going on so long, it's just an automatic thing. It needs to stop. We have a $5+ million fund equity, potential fund equity, actually surplus budget. We have a $20 million fund equity. We don't need students to bring in anything. If we're going to pay for their lunches for free, we can sure allow them not, they don't have to buy pencils. So that's just my position. And I think it's been long overdue. You brought up Mr. Storm originally, and you are correct. It has happened. It's been going on for years and decades, actually. And I have personally can afford it, but I know there are kids that can't. And they shouldn't be put in a position that, Bobby brought in 10 boxes of Kleenex and I couldn't bring in any. And they shouldn't be put in any position for that. It's not good.
We will.
I think for me, I want to make sure that every teacher in this district knows that we will support them, provide them with whatever supplies they need. We're fortunate to have some principals in the room here this evening. They're hearing it from our mouths to their ears. If there are teachers who need monetary support to purchase supplies to help improve their educational experience in the class, we as a board will support them.
They didn't have it. Okay, there was years here that the teachers actually brought their own stuff in to the classrooms and a compliment to them and thanking them for doing that. I saw it happen.
Yep.
So
we're in a position where we need that
we're not in
again.
that position anymore. And the teachers shouldn't have to go in their own checkbook to bring in supplies to help their kids. They should just be able to come and ask for it. But they do have this building budget situation, and when they don't have that in their building budget is when it runs into an issue. So I don't know how you'll handle it because you open the floodgates, right? But at the same time, there's the finance guy.
Well, and those provisions have been procedure for the district for most of this school year, haven't they, Dr. Outlaw? So this
Yes.
is in place
We've made a
already and
change.
working. Yes,
We've made a change.
we're just elevating it to
That's
the
great,
board
and that's good
policy
news.
level.
But just so you know, we're providing everything that they need for the classroom, but students always have choice. Parents have
Fine.
choice to buy their own stuff if they want to. And, but we're going to provide what's required in the classroom 100%. So.
I have a question. On page 26, we have a link to the BAS fundraising request form. My question just has to do with that, or if that's,
Thank you. That actually came up at the last meeting and it's supposed to not be there. We don't
Correct.
want the form itself to be part of the policy. So
just be a reference, just be a reference to a document.
Correct,
Right.
not the link, not a link to a document.
That's
Right.
that's my question.
So in order to make that correction, would we need a motion to remove the form on page 26?
I think that would be great.
Just make the motion and
Should I amend my,
We'll amend the motion to approve.
so I'd like to amend the motion to change the BAS fundraising request form, remove the link.
Okay, so we have an amended motion. Do I have a second for the amendment? Seconded by Mr. Storm. And any other discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 6-0. Okay, and that moves us to item G, property tax L 4029.
I went through, in my presentation, I talked about that 4029. There's a copy of it in the packet. The only thing that I want to add is when I put the 4029 together, I had the woman in charge of all the taxation for Livingston County review it for me, to double check all my numbers, just to make sure everything was good before we moved on it. So otherwise, I went through the millages. We're all good on the millages. Debt millage does not change.
You have a motion? Moved by Mr. Storm. Any second? Support. Support by Mrs. Marks. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 6-0. Item H, final budget for 23-24.
So in your packet is the actual resolution to amend our fiscal year 2024 budget for each function code based upon the presentation. Okay.
Motion.
Motion.
By Mr. Conley and supported by Dr. Krebs. Discussion.
Is this where we're going to talk about the senior center with Mr.
That's
Storm?
our projected budget. The next one, yes.
Because we got a county commissioner here that I'd like to include in that as well. He's over here on the side. So, okay. So it's fine. Yeah, I'm good.
Any discussion on the final budget for 2023-24? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 6-0. Item I, projected budget for 24-25.
So just like fiscal year 24, there is a resolution in your packet to pass the budget I presented for fiscal year 2025 for each function code for the 5 operating funds, the general fund, food service, community ed, student activity, and capital fund.
Storm, any support?
Support.
Discussion.
I'd like to discuss this here, Senator. Just a quick question. So one comment is, on a night like tonight where we have so many members of our community, elderly members of our community come in and devote time to speak to us, it was moving to have a 98-year-old member of the community walk up and address us from the podium. And I would just love to find a path to be able to at least acknowledge at the end of the public comments, acknowledge and just share some perspective with those who took time to come up here. Many of them, I'm sure it's not easy to walk up from the parking lot. And when we move to the next agenda item and they all kind of filter out of the room, I just thought as a member of this board, it would be nice to at least be able to have some type of closure to the comments that were offered to us. And then my personal comment after listening to them and learning more about this, I wonder in my own mind if there's a path to supporting either an expansion of the existing facility, just considering the level of support that exists in the community for this facility and all the programming affiliated with it, or is there a path to build a brand new senior center in Brighton? And there were a number of people who stood up tonight that mentioned they moved here because of the senior programming that was made available. And it was interesting to hear Mr. Johnson speak about, when he was on this board, I think he said 4 decades ago, there was a very conscious initiative in the community to connect kindergartners with senior citizens. And I think that's a wonderful idea. So I just wanted to publicly offer my support to those folks that came in, and also just acknowledge and provide support to our board if there's interested parties that would want to explore this further. I'm definitely someone who would be an advocate and supporter of helping our senior citizens.
Andy, just so our last 2 bonds, I was actively involved in them. And I can tell you out of that, I don't know what was the total, 140 million out of both of them. A very, very, very small amount of money was spent at the senior center out of those 2 bonds. Okay. In my opinion, the senior center is the last entity that gets anything, if it gets anything at all. Okay. And at that time, we had to fight to try to get some of the funds to do a few things that needed to be done over there that hadn't been done in a long, long time. The parking lot was all done in regards to still the preschool and those kinds of things that were over there. But again, that's the last entity that ever gets any kind of money through Brighton area schools, in my opinion. Okay, everything else takes precedence over that. And again, like you saw the people here. Those people also vote for bonds. They also vote for elected officials, and it would be nice maybe in this new sinking fund or whatever is being discussed moving forward, that maybe there is some yearly allocation money that goes there to help renovate that and keep that up to date. From an addition standpoint, the unfortunate thing about Brighton area schools, we're pretty well landlocked here. We have no more vacant land. At one time, we were going to try to make a deal with a developer and acquire some of that property over by the movie theaters in regards to Limbom or the soccer field area or something like that. But other than that, there's really not a lot of room to expand. So if anything's ever done, it pretty much has to be on the footprint that's there now. So, I'd like to possibly take that out of the equation. But again, I'd like to see if we're going to do something moving forward that maybe we do allocate yearly money to the senior center.
Regarding that comment, Bill, I'm not a land baron and I'm not an expert on commercial real estate, especially as it relates to a public entity like Brighton area schools. But, one area of our community that I know is I don't know if distressed is the right word as it relates to just the vibrancy of the area, but very convenient location that has for years been vacant and gives very good, easy access on a single ground to a senior citizen community population is behind Home Depot, where that bouncy gym, I don't know what my kids go there all the time.
Yeah.
On the back side of Home Depot back there's that big commercial development. Big, spacious area. I think most of it is vacant. I think a Dunham's was back there at one time. Yeah. It's all vacant, tons of parking. It's all on a single level, lots of space for different types of events that would be tailored to the senior community. And I guess, would that be a viable path for us to consider?
Well,
Those buildings have been vacant or just kind of stagnant for many, many, many years.
and not that I'm a commercial real estate expert, but in my opinion, that's probably fairly high-priced property. And no matter if it's being used now or not, I would guess they would want a good chunk of money for it. And again, think about that property that's kind of kitty corner from there behind the senior living area over there. That's still all vacant property. And that was the one that we originally were talking about maybe dealing on. And again, I'm not opposed as a board and maybe moving forward. I think the school system should acquire some property, okay? And again, not as to build another school, but to have something just for this instance, because again, Brighton's getting pretty landlocked. And a lot of districts, I mean, think about when the school district bought out at Scranton and Maltby at the time, right? They were looking ahead at and so far, I don't see any of that in our vision moving forward. And I think we should.
Commissioner Gross, did you have anything you wanted to throw in on this? It's up to the board chief. He's here on that topic specifically on the senior center.
Okay. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, John. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jerome Gross. Most people call me by my nickname of Jay. I live in Green Oak Township. I live very close to Hawkins Elementary School and also Scranton Middle School. As you can see, I'm a member of the Livingston County Board of Commissioners. And I apologize for arriving late, but I had some commissioner meetings up in Howell this evening as well. I'm a member, fairly active member at the Brighton Senior Center. And I've had quite a bit of experience in talking with the people that go there on a regular basis. For a number of years, I was a member of the Hamburg Senior Center as well when I lived in Hamburg Township. I played a role with the County Board of Commissioners in securing ARPA funding for the senior centers, for all 6 in the county. And several of the senior centers sort of really didn't need the money. They're very well off, specifically Heartland, specifically Hamburg Township. Brighton Senior Center is not by any means the worst of the lot. Fowlerville is having trouble just getting off the ground, getting started. But the services vary from one center to another, and it all boils down to dollars and cents. The Hamburg Senior Center is open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, 5 days a week, occasionally in the evening. Our Brighton Senior Center, when you look at their calendar, it says 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., occasionally to 4. I've spoken to Ms. Valenti over there, and she says, well, we're really open, 20 some hours a week, but it's still a lot less than most of the other centers. And that has a interesting impact on the senior citizens that want to use that facility. Just about every day, there is a big crowd. I was over there this morning, and there was probably 70, 80 people in there, maybe even 100. I didn't bother to count because I was quickly in and out. But people come from a long way to go there. They've got friendships, they've got relationships, and they'll do whatever it takes to get there. They'll impose upon a family member to give them a ride. They will use the senior center bus if it can pick them up. They will use LETS, our county system, which could be better, but so they try to get there as often as they can. And right now, they're used to using the big room and a couple of the adjacent rooms and the C and D rooms, which are under consideration for expanded daycare. And I've had a conversation with Dr. Outlaw this morning on that subject as well. I personally would like to see more funding for all of the senior centers. If I had my druthers, I'd have a millage in a heartbeat. And I know a lot of people would support that, but it probably wouldn't fly because my colleagues and I on the county board like to pat ourselves on the back and say, we have the lowest tax rate of any county in the state of Michigan. And we pride ourselves on that. We got a AAA bond rating and we're very conservative with spending our money. I personally have campaigned on the idea that government should live within its budget, just as you and you and you and I have to do either monthly or weekly, whatever it is. Government needs to do the same at all levels. And so we work really hard to live within our budget. And I wish there was more that could be done for the senior centers. I had to fight a 1.5-year battle just to get some ARPA money for each center. And it's a tough sell. And the problem with that is every single one of you someday are going to be as old as I am. And you're going to want to use a facility like the senior center. As you get older, you move into the 1% group. You don't have very many friends around. They're gone. And so you will go to a senior center for some companionship, some relationship, some entertainment. You know, it's not all about bus trips to casinos. And it's not all about playing cards. There's other things over there. Yoga classes, exercise classes, quilting, a lot of things. And so I appreciate your concern. I appreciate your concern. I'd be hopeful that down the road, you could find it within yourselves to allocate more funds to the senior center. Does that mean a brand new facility? I don't know. You'll have to make that judgment. I know there's space throughout the community. Some of it would be ideal. Unfortunately, it's not available. The owners just don't want to lease it or sell it or anything. I know of other organizations that are looking for space. In fact, us at the county are looking for a building for a public defender. Our public defender is the only agency, the only part of county government that leases space. Everybody else is in county-owned property. And so we're trying to find someplace for the public defender, and it's tough. So, you know, I applaud your concerns about, you know, the building over there by Home Depot and lack of vacant space. And I don't have an answer for you. I wish you good luck if you get serious about that. So I thank Mr. Connolly for suggesting that I be allowed to speak. And again, I apologize I wasn't here earlier. And I'm willing to answer any questions you might have.
No questions, maybe just a quick comment. If you could help us get the word out, maybe there are interested parties in the community who, if there was a commitment from the board and from this district to support either an expansion or new senior center for Brighton, maybe they have property or land in the area that they would be willing to maybe not necessarily donate, but sell at a reduced rate that would make it palatable for the district and for the community, for the taxpayers.
Yep.
Sometimes asking is half the battle. So
you're right. And I know some people in the real estate business that I'd be happy to approach. But generally speaking, it's kind of a tough sell right now.
So I think that this should be, maybe this is a discussion we could move to the, first of all, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cruz. If we should be talking about this either at the facilities committee or even, I don't, curriculum too, I could see it in there too, but maybe move it to a committee discussion.
I think just one other recommendation is Mr. Jones is putting together the budget for all of you so we know what dollars are being spent and all of that kind of stuff. I think that's important. And as we've been hearing tonight, I had a chance to meet with Commissioner Gross earlier today, and it was interesting when he was talking about, he mentioned that Heartland is well funded. Well, they're not funded by the schools, they're funded by the municipalities. So I think that we should gather some information about how the others are funded, because I think we're going to find that we might be the only spot where the school district is doing it alone. So that might be a good conversation starter for this topic.
Exactly why we have to have meetings like this. And we have, people like Mr. Gross who came to see you. And we start to kind of brainstorm on what we can do to make it better than just leaving it or cutting it back. Mr. Gross, specifically, what were your constituents' issues about this? Is it about this downsizing? Was that the concern?
People that I spoke with were hearing rumors. And I tried to ascertain, what was the source and so forth. But there's 2 areas of the existing center that are used very regularly. If you're familiar with the building, there's a big open area that gets a lot of usage, and people were very concerned about possibly losing that or part of it. There's 2 small classrooms, I guess, C and D rooms, that are used for a lot of activities. And I think the current plan is, depending on what happens to the rest of this building with, and where the daycare program goes, the senior center on a temporary basis would lose those 2 rooms. And I think people would be accepting and willing to go along with that, as long as they viewed that as being a temporary situation until this building gets to where whatever plans there are to do it. And the senior center can go back to the space it currently has. If there was any attempt to use up the big open room, any portion of that would be devastating. There's a lot of programs over there that space is used every day. And people wouldn't have any place to go. Their programs would be cut. And ideally, we'd like to see the center open 5 days a week, offering more programs. And in my conversation with the folks over there, they would love it if there was more hours, more programs. Most of the other senior centers offer a lot more than Brighton does. Just from the standpoint of the hours, Heartland's open 35 hours a week. Or Hamburg is, I'm sorry. Heartland's probably even more than that. Heartland has evening programs pretty regular. And Heartland is generally conceded to be the very best among the 6 centers. And the people in Brighton, they don't feel that they need to have Heartland. They don't need to be on a par with Hamburg, but they would like it to be better. They would like more services. And so we're looking at a period of time where we're probably going to have a little bit less, maybe do things, just same things a little differently, different spaces. And I think most of the folks that were here, unfortunately, I wasn't here to hear what they had to say, but I think they would be willing to go along with it as long as they know what the ultimate plan is for the daycare programs and getting the senior center back to what we might consider full availability.
Do you know if there's any other efforts going on at the county commission to provide funding?
No. Historically, the county board has not gotten into any direct funding to any senior center. Most of them are somewhat independent. Fowlerville is very independent. Hamburg and Heartland, and I believe Howell, get financial assistance from the city or the township. But once they get that funding, they're pretty much free to do whatever they do as long as they don't get into some sort of trouble. I know down at Hamburg, the director down there, Ms. Eddings, she reports to the Hamburg Township Clerk. They have a very good relationship. Their program is growing. I got some ARPA funding for them, and they used it to buy some furniture and a computer and a wall that they also have a big room. And now they have walls that they can split the room in half or into quarters to have smaller activities, a little more private, if you will, away from the crowd. So the only problem with the ARPA funding, and that's one thing I had to stress with all of the center directors, is ARPA was a one-time shot. You know, they have to spend the money by the end of 26. Some of them have spent it all already in less than a year. And after that, they're on their own. So they've got to, have fundraisers or go back to their township leaders and ask for more money if it's going to be a continuing expense. Some of the centers, the money they spent have been strictly one time. They won't have another request afterwards. Here in Brighton, we have staffing issues and financial issues. And because of lack of staffing, we can't have the programs that would be nice if we had. So your situation, having community ed sponsorship of the senior center, is rare. I lived in Rochester Hills for 20 years. They have a place there. It's called the Older Persons Center, OPC for short. And it's funded by a millage. And it's considered to be a Cadillac program. I hope that we can have a millage before I die. Being a little facetious, I guess. But anyway, the seniors, they're used to what they've had, and they get a little nervous when there's talk about cutting back a little bit and making some changes. I think as we get older, we're more set in our ways, and we expect things to be the same.
What will it generate? What's it going to generate? The 4-year-old daycare program, what kind of revenues is that going to generate for Brighton area schools? What's going to happen?
So we'll have to look at the finance. The financials go through the county, so I don't think that we're going to be generating. It's allowing us to provide expanded opportunities, a higher quality program at a much lower cost to our parents.
Subsidized.
It is taking tax dollars that they're spending, and it's taking, parents used to spend $9,000, $10,000 a year on preschool, and now they're able to access preschool and use it to make ends meet.
We're expanding it, and naturally we're going to create more revenue because we're going to have more students. So it will increase our
Mr. Jones can explain that part of it. Just, it's a little bit more complicated.
So the county will reimburse us for our expenses, but equal to the as long as we operate it,
we're going to see $10,000 the foundation allowance. We're going to see
The county receives all of the money, and they're going to reimburse us for our cost. Yep,
To that per pupil foundation allowance.
correct.
be a contract from the county that says we're going to use many students and this amount. Well, yes.
Yeah, startup costs and things like that.
So we're expecting an even number, but we're going to raise our gross revenue to a point that it's covered, the expenses are covered. So for instance, okay, so we're going to.
Exactly how the budget is built, so the expenses equal revenue.
And I think just to clarify, we've had preschool in Brighton forever.
Yes, we have.
It just happens to be that parents are getting a break after spending all this money. That's the biggest thing that's changed.
Well,
Is-
we're taxpayers are going to pay it.
Absolutely. We're all taxpayers, but they're taxpayers as well. And they're going to have a benefit. So for our young families, so
So Matt,
That's from the-
who dictates the hours of the senior center?
So that was one of the things when we talked earlier today, I wrote down some of those notes and I was just going to have a little follow-up conversation on that. But ultimately, we would determine that because the director works for
We
us.
don't determine that.
I'm saying,
That's never coming.
I'm saying we as the as the, the director is the person we put in charge of that.
Is she full-time with Brighton Area Schools?
Yes.
But the senior
Mr. Thompson, I'm
center's
correct in that, right?
part of it.
She has multiple roles.
Yeah.
She's what?
Yeah. So she's not full-time, she's not a full-time senior center. She's senior center and enrichment for community education. So those are two roles that she has.
So does community ed set the hours to the senior center, John?
Yes.
So why is it only open the hours it is compared to not expanded hours?
So we,
Historically, it's been kind of getting back where we've been. During COVID, obviously, so we've never been a 9 to 5 type of operation. Even Mr. Steve was here this evening. He was our former director of community education a while back. We were-
Okay.
I'd like us to be able to gather a bunch of information. When Mr. Gross and I took a lot of notes, I'd like to do a follow-up and prepare some information for the board, if that's okay. And everything from budgets, I'd like us to do some research of all the surrounding areas, how they're funded, find out, their facilities, are they in schools? Get the board information about senior center, then I think it might be a richer conversation if we have all the,
I think that would be wonderful, and I think
Okay.
that fits well with some of the other topics we usually have on the board workshops, where we're doing future planning.
Yeah,
This is
sure.
exactly what this
Yes.
is, so I think
We have
that's
a,
where
we
we
have a
should put
budget,
that.
guys. We can.
If I could just make one request related to that,
Yeah.
Dr. Alla, and that would be, I would think there are probably grants that are available outside of ARPA and any of the items that we've discussed that are specific to senior citizens. So if there are enrichment programs that we could pursue grant funding for in partnership with Brighton Area Schools, and then your earlier comment, if there are other alternative funding models that we should be considering and discussing and evaluating, I mean, I would love to learn more about that and have a meaningful conversation.
Okay.
The reality is we have the money in the bank.
Yes, there is a
Let's
motion
get it
on the
voted.
table to vote on the proposed budget for 24-25. Can we?
Let's do a roll call on that one.
You want a roll
Just
call
for,
vote?
okay, just for.
Okay, Ms.
give
Ackerman?
Star something to do over here.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Make sure she's awake.
I do support that.
Mr. Conley?
Support the budget, but remember, shared services is a big part of it.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
Mrs. Marks? Yes. Dr. Krebs?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes. That passes 6-0. Okay. Medical response kits for classrooms. Yes.
So we had our nurses that were here last time, and they shared some information about this. You had a chance to look at those medical kits. Both our police liaisons and our medical team have come together, and the ones that are proposed here this evening are the ones that they're endorsing. They think it would be a great fit. They also found that they thought they were going to have to build some way to have it placed in the room in the same spot where our maintenance staff would have to do that. But they found that it's a magnetic piece within it. So they can adhere it just to the whiteboards in the classroom. So it can be in a uniform spot without a lot of extra effort. It's the recommendation is this, and I think it's going to be a great improvement for safety.
All right, do we have a motion? Moved by Mr. Storm, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 6-0. And that will take us to Hilton locker replacement.
So we received ultimately just 2 quotes for the Hilton lockers. So the best quote was Steel Equipment Company at $139,000.
Do we have a motion? Moved by Mr. Storm, supported by Mr. Trombley. Any discussion? Yes.
That we just put the other schools.
Only other question I had was warranty. Is there year-end latches?
I'm looking at their quote and I don't see anything about a warranty, so we will follow up on what the warranty is.
Delivery and installation. Before the end of, or before starting the school next year.
It's my understanding it's like really close or.
In the conversations, it did not sound like it would be a guaranteed before the end of the school year. It may be like Scranton where we had to do it off hours we would do a,
But that's no increase in price to us if they're working off hours.
no,
Our contract with them will be $139.
yes, yeah,
But again, we're not gonna drag it out till Christmas either.
Oh, no.
no.
Because the lockers that go in are in
And then
need to be
who,
replaced soon.
who from the district's gonna oversee to make sure they're installed properly and everything is done correctly? The operation.
Did you say like we always do, Dave?
Yeah, I said like we always run project like this.
I just.
Well, so then our operations director, is that?
Yes, that is correct.
And you know the confidence I have there. So I hope something gets done and it's taken care of correctly and somebody oversees it and everything is done right.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this? All right, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes 6-0. Moves us to for future action. Dr. Outlaw or Mr. Thompson?
Mr. Thompson, did you want to say anything about this? This is an annual resolution that the board does every year. It gives enrollment, how you get in Division I versus Division II. Everybody does it.
I brought this up last year and asked the same question asked about Lisa's, why do we have to, as a board, vote on this?
Well, I tell you why, as a former AD, this is around enrollment, and you're basically signing off that the information you're giving to the MHSA is accurate. For us, we're a Division I school, but having been in other schools that are on the cusp, you want to make sure that we're signed off, that everything's accurate, it's valid. They want an endorsement from the board that you say that this is accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I know.
What I ask myself as a board member is, Mr. Thompson, how many years have you been an AD here in Brighton? Over 20 years, right? I would hope we entrust you to be able to commit what our enrollment is.
MHSA rules.
The reasons that MHSA asks boards of education to do this is that you are renewing your annual pledge to follow their rules and their guidelines. Because hard to believe, not everybody necessarily does. So when you pledge your school district to do that, and then don't necessarily do that, then there's repercussions. You sign on, I
see this as a policy adoption issue, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, that closes for future action and moves us to board committee chair reports.
For the academic committee, we met last week. we had a really interesting, some conversations. So the administration shared the work on getting the personal curriculum out, getting that, how they could better get it out to parents and students. I think that was helpful to hear. There's also a discussion comparing how the course, we've talked about it, the board table, about the electives and how the administration is looking at how electives are shifting and what that looks like. So they're keeping an eye on that, getting that information. Dr. Mosier also shared some of the summer programs. It was really exciting to hear how much they're doing for the summer. Just a couple of the ones, Lit Lab, which is for younger children, Math Lab for grades 3 to 6, online tutoring, Kickstart, Kids Read Now. These are all summer programs available for various kids at different levels. And I think there's some great enrollment in those, so that was really exciting. I think that was pretty much most of what we talked about. So.
Any other?
We always charge about a $40 fee. We do that just kind of but there's also financial assistance. So people who need that, we waive those fees. It's more like we have a lot of staffing costs in this. We do a 1-to-4 or 1-to-5 ratio for students. So it's really to hold the seat and guarantee that you'll come. Otherwise, we end up overstaffing and sometimes those rooms go empty. So it's like a holder fee, I guess is what I would call it. So it's pretty nominal, I would say, but at the same time, anyone who needs financial assistance, we always do that for them, no problem.
We gone out to, do they find you or do you find them? How do the students?
Both happens, but we do send out, I think Kim said over probably 1,000 emails out to families. But then we also have some families who reach out to us and then we put them in a program that they have interest. So I would say probably more so us, but at this point, this is our 3rd year in some of our programs that more people are kind of reaching out to us as well. Kickstart is probably a little more open because it's a way to jumpstart into the school year. The other ones are more intensive intervention. So we're specifically looking for students who might need additional math or ELA support. So it wouldn't necessarily fit all kids just because it's more of an intense intervention for kids.
For the policy committee, we did not meet this month. I don't think we're scheduled to meet the rest of the month, and we don't have anything on the calendar for July. So unless Trin throws policies at us or the administration raises something, we probably will not meet until August.
We don't have a finance committee anymore. So we didn't meet.
Anything else for the board reports? Okay. The next regular meeting for the school board will be July 8th at 7 p.m. We are adjourned. Yes, sir.
You too.